All right, everyone, it's time for a follow-up to the Charlottesville rallies because it really went off with a bang, literally. The second day, there's police copter was downed. I'm not sure whether that's foul play, whether they've said they suspect that yet. They said, oh, must have been in connection to the protests. Well, yeah, but that could also mean they were on their way over to the crowd and they clipped a tree, so... it's sad that the officers died, but we gotta wait, I think, to see whether it was brought down by somebody on the ground. And if it was, everyone should condemn it, because it's not immediately going to be certain. Was this an Antifa member firing like a duct tape bazooka or something? Or was it somebody on the alt-right? So let's hold out and hold off on judging that one for right now. Clickbaity as though the media is treating it. And that's really the first thing I need to say. The media response to this is so terribly awful, so absolutely bad, so totally intellectually dishonest. Trump comes out and says exactly what he should say. Oh, I condemn hate and violence in all its forms. Salon and the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Atlantic and MSNBC, CNN, half the people on Fox, by the way, at this point, all these people come out and say, they read into his statement, somehow they invert it. And they instead derive the meaning, oh, Trump loves hate and violence. Because he didn't just say, oh, well, these fucking Nazis or something like that. He's condemning hate and violence. But here's the key. He didn't bother. He's not going to bother to come out and say, oh, yeah, I condemn these white supremacists or something. They're not going to like that either. They're not going to give him a pass. They're not going to give him a fair shake. It's yellow journalism. All of these pundits and assholes in the fake news legacy media, no matter what he said, were ready to jump on his tweet, jump down his throat, and use their pre-manufactured write-ups about how he is somehow responsible for the rise of identitarianism in the United States. Now, this is the same movement that a few months ago they said, oh, it's just a couple of people smoking meth in a trailer and heiling Hitler. And they found it funny. And they ignored them. All of a sudden, it's a big problem. All of a sudden, it's an enormous movement. 500 or 600 people is an enormous movement. All of a sudden, it's a huge threat to Western civilization. You have Hatch there making his hollow threat. Oh, I'll kill Nazis again if I have to. No, you're not. You're not going to do shit. Because you politicians love this shit. You love it when people die. The legacy media adores it even more. As soon as they saw that a person was dead in Charlottesville, all these freaks, these weirdos at being liberal and Salon and every other outlet, they sat there, they got a massive heart-on, honestly. That's exactly what happened. They love it because it allows them to grandstand and allows them to ignore the fact, and hope that you'll ignore it too, that their race baiting for decades and decades led to this problem. They're the ones that have destroyed race relations in this country. People would have left one another alone. By now, people would have learned to live together, and they would have, honestly enough, self-segregated in inner city communities is the human tendency. It's happening in London all the time. They would have lived together, and there would have been a bare minimum of violence between these groups of people. But instead, what happens every election? Politicians come out, hey, the white man is trying to rob from you. Suppress the inner city. Hey, a white man, these Hispanics are stealing your jobs. They do this every fucking election. Every friggin' time. And the legacy media is right there with them because they either support or oppose the comments made by the politicians, but it's always from that same racial sort of bent. They do the same thing. So they're really, above all other groups. I did a poll last night on Twitter, actually. I think there were like 3,000 people voted on it. It was quite a few. And people seem to agree with the assessment. More people think that the MSM is responsible for this fucking problem than the right or the left. I agree with them. I agree completely. It's their fault. They're the ones that are destroying race relations because they don't see people as Americans. When's the last time that Salon came and said, we should just all have togetherness, condemn hate in all of its forms? No, they'd rather harangue about, we must condemn white hate. We must be proud black Americans. Oh yeah, you've got a little bit of hypocrisy there, I think. I think we isolated the problem. By the way, you're giving plenty of ideological fodder to identitarian movements, and that's the point. They want them to grow. They want them to be more scary and threatening because they live in their gated communities far away from any sparring that's happening on the street. They don't have to worry about that shit. They just sit there and report on it. report. Yeah, they make up shit about it is what they do. It's bullshit. They love it. I bet Salon was on the edge of its seat hoping that the police would immediately announce, oh, some evil Nazi or some communist brought down the police helicopter. They would have used the dead names of those officers, too, as propaganda. They would have loved it. They're still waiting for that to be confirmed. Oh, they're going to have a field day if it's confirmed that it was brought down by somebody on the ground. Oh, evil, evil, hate, hate, everybody hate one another. And then they have the gall, the audacity to say Trump is the one stirring up hate. His tweet on the subject is basically, hey, we don't have time for hate and violence. We need to come together and stand as one. How is that a bad message? And then they compare it to Obama sits there quoting Nelson Mandela. Yeah, like that's not potentially racial incitement itself when you're dealing with an identitarian movement that happens to be white, that happens to be generally against communism. Yeah, what a great idea. Yeah, his speech on the subject was wonderful. He and Biden stand there and, again, morally grandstand. Look, Obama helped set race relations back in this country, too. There was a time, second term, his popularity is lagging off. What does he say? Oh, I think part of this is due to the hidden racism of white people. Like as an excuse for why his approval was low. Bullcrap. Because if somebody had racial animus, they wouldn't have voted for you in the first place, so they were never part of that approval total. And any sane person understood this. I talked about this at the time. This was like 2-3 years ago. I mean, it's full of crap. And the legacy media, they love that stuff because it allows them to make more clickbait. They hope that black and white people get together in the streets and beat on each other. They hope so. They hope that happens. They can get good footage and slap it online. And make money. They make ad revenue off this stuff. They love it. But then we got to point out some other nonsense. First, I see some people on the right are actually celebrating the car attack. Are you nuts? Look, if people who are on the right somewhere, not just identitarians, anyone who's right-leaning, if they want to get together, get a permit to protest, they get together, they hold a rally, that's just speech. You have the right to do that. I would never, by the way, stand with people who wanted to destroy that right. You have the explicit right to get together and hold your rally, your protest, whatever. Those people on the left have that right too. And I don't believe in permitted protests. I don't think anyone should have to have a permit. Not unless they're carrying weapons or something like that. They want to hold it like an armed march or something. Okay, that might be a little bit different. If they're just getting together with tiki torches, you shouldn't have even had to apply for a permit. No, fuck that shit. The government doesn't have any right to turn a right into a privilege. Those left-wingers had the right to be there and counter-protest too. You may not agree with their message, but they still have that friggin' right. And you're sitting there applauding somebody plowing into them. Now, I think jury is still out on whether the suspect that they have in custody is even responsible for that attack. It could have been an identitarian. You know, if it's this person, probably is, because he's got the fashy haircut thing going on. So, it could be that. It could be someone on the left mistook the other leftists, actually, for maybe identitarians. It could be someone went totally psycho. But I think, in all likelihood, yeah, it was probably motivated. And it was someone who was nationalistic in their variants. And by the way, and this is just a little bit of an aside, I see a lot of like Nazi flags at your rally. And now Richard Spencer has come out and said, well, we're not fighting, Baked Alaska aside, Richard Spencer's more like, no, we don't want like balkanization or anything, we just want a whiter America. Okay, so you support the U.S., you just have a different vision about what you want the U.S. to be. Then why is it you're not flying the U.S. flag? Why is everyone wearing a swastika badge like this isn't Germany? Or the CSA flag. I know it overlaps with the Confederate statue stuff, but don't you think you're going to get more flies with a spoonful of sugar than a gallon of vinegar? And by the way, you shouldn't, if you're sitting there saying, well, we were beaten on by the left, yeah, you're going to. You got together in a rally. Antifa was obviously going to show up. Nobody has a right to complain when that happens. Like legal recourse, yeah, but it's just like if a bunch of communists hold a rally, they can expect, yeah, there are probably going to be some right-wingers that are going to show up and harass them. Maybe they won't be throwing Molotov cocktails, but it's probably going to happen. That's why the police were there. They knew, oh, yeah, this might get a little dicey. And then you look at all the propaganda images, which is what they are, like the black cop sitting there with all the people with the Nazi flags marching in the background. It's just so foolish. Yeah, where were these media outlets when race relations started to decline in the first place? You never had a problem with it then, you just ran it into the ground for clickbait so you could make more money. That's what they're all about. They don't care about you. They don't care if a white person dies or a black person dies. They don't care if a native citizen or an immigrant dies. They don't care if you're poor or kind of well off. They don't care if you die. But if you die and they can spin it somehow to make clickbait, they're going to do that. They'll make a profit off of your death or your injury, your problems. Then we turn to the left. And it's funny to me. Right now, people on the right are being called on to condemn, like Spencer and identitarianism. Are people on the left going to be expected to condemn Antifa, who attacked, in the pregame, the day before with the tiki torches? They were the ones, at least it appeared, who attacked first. Are you going to condemn their violence? Is that hate-filled and bigoted and evil? Or are you just going to focus on the people who are like, white nationalists or something? I see a double standard here. That's why I support Trump's tweet. To condemn hateful action. Look, people can speak however they want. They should have that right and that expectation. Once they start devolving into a fist fight, though, it takes two to tango. You can't just focus on one or the other. So somebody who's an identitarian right now, they look at this and they say, well, we were antagonized by Antifa. Well, yeah, but you're still fighting with them. It's not exactly a Martin Luther King peace rally or something. People on the left, they're like, oh, well, evil Nazis, something has to be done about them. Yeah, the answer is not combat in the streets. Don't you think that's a problem? There's a difference. Like, I had some idiot last night on Twitter saying to me, oh, hate speech is a form of violence. No, it's not. It's speech. It's not incitement. It can be. I mean, you can incite violence, but unless you're actually trying to do that, no. The fact that it's hate-filled, it's still free speech. In fact, it's one of the forms of explicit First Amendment protection that exists because it's unpopular. You don't need the First Amendment to say good morning to somebody. You don't need the First Amendment to say, oh yeah, I like powdered donuts more than jelly-filled donuts. Like, I can't deal with that shit. You don't need the First Amendment for that. Nobody's going to try to ban it. You need the First Amendment for stuff like hate speech, for criticism of a politician, criticism of a religion, for bigoted beliefs. That's why you need the First Amendment, because the government can't be the arbiter of what is morally right or wrong. Such a terrible idea, and the left needs to get that fucking through their heads before it's aimed back at them. And you're nuts if you think it's a good idea to regulate speech. It's unconstitutional anyway. I mean, you're nuts if you think that it'd be a good idea. And a lot of millennials do. Like, I think jury's out on Gen Z. I think they're less receptive to that idea than the millennials. Good. Good. It means that free speech will be perpetuated at least as long as I'm alive. Good. Trust me, I'm happy that Generation Z's not like this generation. I'm really happy about the fact. Also, I saw David Duke weigh in. Oh, you're identitarian. This is white America. Anything that David Duke touches turns to a pile of shit. And people who haven't recognized this, who are on the right, who want to shake David Duke's hand, suck his cock off, you must be crazy. Every time he co-ops a movement, it falls apart. There are people, I get criticized sometimes, oh, you've got like the open leather jacket and long hair, so you look kind of creepy or something. At least I don't look like David Duke with his pudding bowl haircut. He looks like he's trying to be a white supremacist beach bum from the early 70s or something like that. And I just don't have time for that. I've had some people like criticize me. Oh, you don't like David Duke. Why would I like David Duke? What's he saying that's novel? Who cares about David Duke? Who cares? He's the white Al Sharpton. It's like in Al Sharpton comes forward. So I'm a black advocate. I'm going to talk to the inner city. Oh, we need more money for this program that supposedly lift people up out of poverty. Oh, we need to protect black Americans. He goes back to his gated community. He doesn't mingle with the average black American. He doesn't care about them. He'll grandstand too, like he's been in politics. He'll come forth and say, oh, there's violence against black people, so you need to re-elect me. That's the whole point. He wants there to be that violence so he can use that as an easy campaign platform. The media loves violence. The Al Sharptons and David Dukes love violence because it lets them grandstand and advertise their shitty podcast or their Senate run or whatever it happens to be. This is the way that things work in this country. Have we all gone fucking insane? We're staring down the nuclear gamut right now with China. worrying about North Korea, worrying about Russia, which is, it's bull crap, but there are people worried about it. Or global, climate change, which is a non-issue because there's nothing you can do about it, or a million other things. And we have to sit here worrying about some statues and a few hundred people marching and devolving into violence. Because of idiots in the media, largely, who won't even give the president a pass. They want the president to fail. Just like they want there to be violence in Charlottesville, all the salons and being liberals want Trump to fail too. They would love it if we hit another Great Depression right now. It would give them something to complain about. They wouldn't even notice the effects of the Depression because they'd still be making money hand over fist blaming other people when they would probably have a hand in causing it. The media is number one in responsibility for what happened in Charlottesville. They were also responsible for the problems in Ferguson. They were responsible for what happened in the wake of the Zimmerman trial. They've been responsible for everything. The legacy media, with its propaganda, its government co-opted bullcrap, its clickbait for ad revenue, they're responsible. To a lesser degree, people on both the right and the left need to fucking chill out and learn that, number one, your words are protected. You can say whatever you want. I don't believe in the hate speech, censorship sort of bullshit. It happens online, happens in the real square. You get the ACLU defending the alt-right on this one. So I think I'm probably justified in this opinion. I'm going to side with the ACLU on this one. And if they were defending a bunch of communists who were going to be blocked from the public square, I'd support them too. Even if I disagree totally. It's like I don't even have to agree with identitarianism. They have the right to speak. Once it devolves, though, into violent action, it's, of course, a totally different story. And by the way, haven't you people learned that it's a lot easier to, if you just have discourse, if you think that you're right, then you shouldn't need violence. It's like when Antifa shows up and throws bottles, it's a sign of ideological weakness. Maybe physical strength, but ideological weakness, because they think they need to force their beliefs on others. So they can't just have an argument and convince others of the nobility of their beliefs, because their beliefs are dumb. That's why they throw the bottles. So when you have somebody on the right who's acting the same way, and in fact worse, driving people over, kills one of them, that's a sign of their ideological weakness. Maybe you need to think about how you're putting your argument forward. And maybe you should think about vetting people that come to your rallies and encouraging nonviolence to some extent. Yeah, you're going to get beaten on Antifa. Okay, people can defend themselves, but wouldn't it be better, you could grandstand even more if you just let Antifa come in, throw your rocks, and you don't charge them. If you did that, then you can't be blamed for it. The legacy media might still try to blame you. Oh, well, they were throwing rocks at Nazis, so it's okay. But the internet would be more kind to you. They'd say, oh, look at these scumbag communists pelting these people with rocks and stuff. And they're too noble to even respond. That's sort of the way that you do. And Antifa, why do you think their movement is still, generally speaking, relatively small and relegated to some urban areas? Because they're violent. Their ideology is weak. Well, you're going to have the same problem if you don't adapt to different tactics. The media is number one at fault for this, though. And the government probably number two because of idiot politicians using race constantly, like Hillary Clinton's hot sauce comments or something like that. Oh, I carry it around in my purse, black people. Please vote for me. Yeah, that's not racist at all. It's not race baiting at all. It's not really, at the very least, really outdated and insensitive. It's like something it's a joke that writes itself for the late night comedy tours of the world. Everyone sat there listening to that shit. And they said, oh, this is going to be great. I can't wait to bring this up. I'll be able to, I don't have to write anything else tonight because I can rant about this for an hour easily. That's what we've devolved into. Now, I just support the United States and I want to be left alone, say what I want to say. I don't want to see anybody else censored. That, depending on who you ask, that either makes me a cucked socialist or a Nazi fascist. Think about that for a moment. You got to get past the labels at some point. They can try all they want, but it's dumb. The media, the same media that's rambling about violence right now, caused the violence largely. You caused it with your race baiting. That's about all. Peace out.